Welcome back to my channel. Today, I wanted to have my good friend HeyArcher on the channel today. He's here with me on our lovely correspondence we have set up. So today, I really want to talk about Star Wars. He's done a ton of different Star Wars stuff on his channel. He's talked about The Mandalorian, every single episode, including a full season review. He's talked about Rise of Skywalker, all of its trailers, and done a full review. I, on the other hand, have not done anything because it took me forever to actually see the movie. But now that I have seen the movie, I can actually talk about it. And also upcoming, before I introduce my buddy here, I'm also working on another Star Wars video that's kind of unrelated to Rise of Skywalker and all that other stuff. It's actually about how to get someone into Star Wars. So make sure you subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on that video. But let's introduce my buddy here. Welcome, HeyArcher.
Hey, what's going on? Glad to be back on the channel. And this is also going to be part one of a two-part conversation we're having. So everybody watching, everybody listening, we need your help to come up with a cool show title for the show that we do together, where we kind of match things up. We're thinking Titans related, but if you guys have other ideas, please let us know, of course. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to have you on the channel. Always a big fan. Always love watching your content. I've been lucky enough to be a guest on your channel several times, so it's an honor to have you back on my channel.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, cool.
And right back.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, Star Wars. I know you're a massive Star Wars guy. Obviously, you have tons and tons of videos, especially over like the past 2 months with all the Star Wars content's been coming out. Let me start out with a question. Was there anything in particular that got you into Star Wars? I know there's tons of different reasons. People start obviously with the original trilogy. Was there something Star Wars that got you into it?
Yeah, so that question always ties into my list of what's the best movies. At the time as a kid, I was watching Star Trek primarily because my dad was heavy into Star Trek. So I remember having a Enterprise from the Next Generation figure or model thing, and the saucer part and the body disconnected. And I remember one day I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden there's the saucer part flying around, and I was like, "Oh, I've never seen this Star Trek." So I'm sitting there, and sure enough, it's The Empire Strikes Back on NBC or something. So upon watching it, I didn't even know what it was. And I was hooked. I was just obsessed. My mom ended up telling me that was the second movie. I called her a liar, and for years thought that was actually the first movie, and Empire Strikes Back was Return of the Jedi was part 2. So I actually didn't even see New Hope for years on end. But it was that moment where I even left Star Trek and went Team Star Wars.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I've been kind of back and forth. I think always more Star Wars than Star Trek. It wasn't until the more resurgence of Star Trek that I got more interested in it. Late 2000s, I think, when I sort of started to rebooted, that I got more into Star Trek. But I think I've always been more Star Wars. I think you get exposed to it a lot earlier, or at least I did anyway. So that was a big intro for me. But today, I really wanted to talk about, obviously, Rise of Skywalker, big thing that came out. Very divisive among a lot of people. But so did The Mandalorian, which a lot of people love, myself included. Didn't do a review on it, but just so you know, I did like it a lot. Archer, you seem to like Mandalorian, not so much on Rise of Skywalker, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So my thoughts on Rise of Skywalker is kind of parallel to how you described it, actually. In your review, you kind of said I don't remember if it was your review or your HeyArcher episode, where you talked about kind of just sitting there for a couple minutes and trying to figure out what it was that you just watched. There was a point where you had to turn your brain off, and I kind of agree with that. There's a point where I was just questioning a lot of what was happening, and I just kind of had to just soak in whatever was happening in front of me. But it got me thinking, since this is technically the end of the Skywalker saga, even though I don't think it tied it up that well, where are we going to go from here? Mandalorian's doing big stuff on Disney Plus. They've already renewed season 2 and have that ready coming out fall of 2020, I believe. So a lot of big things are coming out there, a lot of interesting storylines. But where is Star Wars going to go from here? We've already kind of covered the origin of Han Solo, where the Death Star plans with Rogue One got started, and how that leads into A New Hope. There's a lot of these sort of spin-off stories happening, but I think we should kind of go in a different direction. Do you think we should go with this a spin-off, or do you think we should go with something more original with Star Wars? What do you think would be best?
For all of you guys, sorry if there's a jump off there. My connection somehow dropped, so I apologize. So the question was, where do we go next? Since we already have Solo, we have a movie of how the Death Star plans got stolen and all that kind of stuff. So actually, I'm going to answer this in two different ways. What I want is for them to actually leave the Skywalker lineage altogether, because to me and to a lot of people, I feel the Skywalker saga ended already. That's what Return of the Jedi was. You had the passing of the torch, father to son, and Star Wars as a whole, depending on how you look at it, is the story of Anakin Skywalker in the 6 movies. But knowing them, this is the other half of the equation, they're treating this like it's stock, and they're thinking about what is the bigger risk, the lowest risk. For them, staying in the Skywalker saga might be what they decide to do, because it's familiar to fans, it's familiar to casuals, and with The Mandalorian, you can show that you can have characters with similar traits to what exists, but by having it in the same timeline, people can still kind of follow along. So I want them to leave it, but I think, especially with the backlash on the last 3 movies, I think they're just going to push for movies that still take place somehow in that timeline.
Okay. That's really interesting, because I was actually reading tonight, actually, that because I wanted to do a little bit of research on what people were, the sort of pulse was on where people should go. So a lot of it tends to go in 2 directions, either in the direction of keeping a lot of these characters that we just met, continuing with Rey's story in terms of her training new Jedi, possibly with Finn trying to not necessarily assemble, but find these defected stormtroopers, or that have left the stormtrooper program, as they were just sort of taken when they were kids, to now living full lives, or whatever that could be. I don't know if it's like almost like a VA type of thing, where he's like helping them out once they're out of service. I'm not 100% sure if that's what the idea.
Right.
Possibly going with Poe and him fighting more, whatever you want to call it, out there, Final Order, First Order, that may still exist, or going with something completely out of that storyline, and going with the main consensus is being towards Knights of the Old Republic, which is set like 4,000 years or something before any of this, has nothing to do with the characters. Yes, it still has Jedis, it still has a lot of the core things you know, but it doesn't have that Skywalker storyline attached to it. So I think either one could work. I would prefer something along the lines of Knights of the Old Republic. Still get all the good lightsaber stuff and a lot of good back and forth between good and evil. Get a ton of new characters. You can really go any direction you want. You're not putting yourself in that box. But at the same time, is it going to be kind of in the vein of a video game movie? Because Knights of the Old Republic is a video game. Video game movies don't have the best reputation. Is that a good idea or not? So it's kind of here or there. I think that they should go outside of the timeline, just because it kind of puts you in a box. You have to either go post Republic into New Order, or First Order, sorry, or after that whole issue with the Final Order. So I mean, you kind of have different things you can work with, but how expansive do you think that they should get? Like completely new stuff, or still work within the constructs of dealing with the Final Order or the Empire, somewhere in that time frame?
So there's a little game that is known around the world, known as Russian roulette. And the premise, for those of you who've never played Russian roulette, is You put a bullet in a gun, a revolver, you spin it, pull the trigger, and you see if the bullet pops off, right? So currently in Star Wars, Disney themselves have been playing Russian roulette. And what they've been doing is their plan was let's kill off the old characters, let the past die, if you would, and try to build a new group, right? So they've been clicking at it. And even by killing off the characters, people got upset, but they were just like, kind of whatever. Right now, as you pointed out, there is an expansive universe of the 4,000 years or however many years it is prior in the Knights of the Republic, in all of that lore. And that fan base that read all those books and played all those games and still play the massive multiplayer online version, whatever it's called, those are some real hardcores. Those are some real hardcore fans. And if they touch that stuff and they decide they want to do their own thing again, because again, if you do the old things, they rumored, if you do things of characters that are already established, you pay George Lucas. And if they're trying to get away from that and they want to make all new characters and not count all of that stuff, to me, the fans will just say, I'm not watching any of it. Like, I'm done. Especially if they start copying character traits. Like, Darth Revan allegedly now is canon because he was referenced in one of the visual guides. So, like, if they go back and try to do Darth Revan, I'm telling you now, there's no way they'll do it right. And not because Disney can't get, like, Dave Filoni or somebody to do it. It's because there's no way you're going to get the fans to be happy with it. That version of Star Wars is so big, so detailed, so in-depth that there's no way they'll appease everybody, which is what they attempted to do in this last movie. So if I was them, the safer bet would be either go forward and you could try to build on the Finn and the Rey stuff and all of that, but there's already a lot of hate around them. I say even go further forward than that and just reference old things. Start a new story that doesn't exist at all. If they want to borrow something from the old, what I would do is borrow from that Knights of the Old Republic era the idea of the Jedi and the Sith not necessarily being as good and evil as they are now. Where at one point you had like the Sith Order as they were starting up again, kind of having Jedi and Sith in their organization. Like, it was very muddy. So if I was them, that's what I would do, especially now that everything's wiped clean. I do a whole new thing. Things are muddy. What you think are good are not really good. What's bad is not really bad. And kind of go from there. Because those hardcore fans, to them, you've been playing Russian roulette. The Skywalker stuff, that is what it is. They don't care. They'll watch it, but they're just like, they know it's bullshit. They are hardcore into that other stuff. And if you try to touch that stuff, you'll lose them for sure.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Now, something that I read that was interesting is that they're going to be kind of putting a bit of a pumping of the brakes on Star Wars upcoming. So you're actually not going to get anything Star Wars other than like the Mandalorian season 2 and possibly something on Disney Plus, like Clone Wars season 7, I believe, until actual movie wise until about 2022. So It sounds further away, but it's actually not. I think there's only like 3 movies planned, which they don't even know what it's going to be about yet, from like 2022 to 2026. So they're putting a little bit of a pumping of the brakes after all this content we've gotten lately. But there's also still plans for like the Kenobi series.
Hello there.
And all this other stuff. So do you think they can have a place where Disney Plus or something along those lines can stay within the original already established universe and then the movies go beyond that? Because I think even Rian Johnson still has his setup trilogy that he's supposed to get, which probably won't happen, or at least to the extent that he wanted it to originally, because they gave him the green light before Last Jedi even came out, I think. So they can go various places here. Do you think it's better if they keep in-universe on one platform and then go expanded outside of that, vice versa?
That's a really good question. I would, for the sake of gaining new fans, I would stay in universe in the app. because that's what most people are going to be consuming. Because a lot of casuals didn't go see The Rise of Skywalker unless kids were involved. Like they had to go take the kids to see it, or if they had friends that were like, "We're going to go see it." People didn't do that on their own, but casuals will sit down for 28 minutes, 45 minutes, and watch something on Disney Plus if that's quote unquote water cooler conversation.
Sure.
So I would, if I was going to do the two, I would do out of universe in the movies, in universe on the app. If they want to tie the two together by dropping hints towards things, that's fine. But that's how I personally would do it if I was them.
Okay. No, I think that would probably be the smartest play. I mean, you're going to get both casual people wanting to experience Star Wars. You're going to have the at home where you're going to have constant access to old movies, new movies, TV shows, spin-offs, whatever you can consume. And then because of that investment, you can maybe want to go and see whatever's in theaters. How's it going to play off of that, or really just be different, I guess, at the same time? I mean, there's a lot of different pros and cons to various ways they can play it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a random idea that came to me. I think that, there are pros to having just in-universe stuff at home. You have those casual people who can, especially with the day of streaming now, where you can say, if you have Obi-Wan Kenobi series, oh, I like that character, you roll right into consuming more content or anything like that, and they just continue to build based off of that. Or you can go outside into films for new stuff for the people that actually want to experience it.
Well, here's the issue I have with that, because I was reading something similar today. They are talking about, of course, as you mentioned, the Obi-Wan series, right?
Hello there.
So we can definitely do that, because once Clone Wars ends, yes, there's a period between movies and the series where we can show Obi-Wan doing anything on Tatooine. There's the Darth Maul, as you mentioned. Darth Maul, that would have to take place in the same period, to me, at least. And the part that throws me off and that tells me that they're in kind of a freak out mode is they're talking about doing live action shows to flush out the Clone Wars series and the Clone Wars era. You already have that. It's called Clone Wars. They're about to finish it. So to do live action versions of that, to me, is a waste of time and resources. Unless they're trying to grab a new audience of some sort. If they're going to do anything, now you have a smaller window. You've got that post Revenge of the Sith, pre-Empire period, which you have the Rebels series in. So the Rebels series was a small part, and that was one team. They intersected with Vader every so often, intersected with some other characters, which I will mention in case people have not seen it. But that's their window now. So I think what they should do, if they're going to keep in the current existing universe for the app, they got to stay there. But the other thing, too, is with Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, we already know what happens to them both, respectively, because that was also in the Rebels TV show. So if they're going to do live action, and they're going to stay in that universe, I think if they want to do an Obi-Wan like short movie type thing, all right, I guess. But Maul, I'm iffy on that. They keep trying to use him in too many things. Solo, Rebels, Clone Wars, own movie. Like, they're really trying to pull that string too much. I don't know. Maybe if you're going to stay in universe and you want to do something live action on the series, on the app or whatever, just do a young Luke Skywalker at this point. Like, young Luke doing whatever. Obi-Wan comes in and out. But maybe that would help us get to know Luke before he even had the Force. At the same time, that might crash and burn like Gotham did. But that's maybe.
I don't really know how that would go. I mean, he'd just be moisture farming and complaining.
Yeah.
The entire time.
The adventures
sucks, and then just kicks him out with it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I would just. I mean, I'd rather just leave the whole thing, and let the existing stuff just stay. But if they're adamant about staying in there, you could do him. I mean, you can't do Boba Fett now because you have the Mandalorian, so that would be the same thing twice. Han Solo, they tried it, failed it. Maybe they do Leia, but even Leia didn't interact with Force users, so that would be just political conversation.
Let me ask you this, because now that you mentioned Leia, something interesting that they did in the Rise of Skywalker, was a quick little scene where Luke is training Leia.
Right.
Do you feel like, because that kind of explains at least some of her more Force abilities outside of the entire continuity of the original movies, that she suddenly has Force abilities in The Last Jedi?
Right.
So yes, she could have been Force sensitive the entire time, and nobody said anything. But we established that she is in some form of training, and has a lightsaber. So if you did want to go with that, again, you're kind of working with a small window of what happened between Return of the Jedi to Force Awakens, kind of in that window of what was Leia doing in that time that caused her to obviously not only start a family with Han Solo, kind of let Ben go do his thing, where he's going to eventually become Kylo Ren, and then become a general, like a full-fledged general. So I think that's just a finite window, but yeah, you could kind of play with it for probably a couple seasons.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, I think it's all just comes down to those tiny windows that they can fit in. Again, Obi-Wan and what he's going to do with, can he intervene on those little moments of Luke as a kid up until he finds him, even though he's obviously aware of him, his existence on Tatooine. Leia's training as a Jedi, very small windows that could fit into the continuity that we know, and then just have the expanded universe outside of that.
I mean, heck, at this point, just since they copy their own stuff anyway, copy the idea of Clone Wars, but now do it with all of that. So, yeah, show when the temple is being rebuilt. Show when Leia is learning the Force with Luke. Showing her messing up and her becoming more powerful than he is. I feel like that's what they were kind of trying to allude to in that one scene. It might be a stretch on my end. It might have been a stretch on their end, but that's what I feel like they were trying to say. But you can show that stuff, and I would just do it animated at that point. I think live action, as cool as it is to see them, when it's done, I think live action just never works out well with this kind of material, especially when they've built it up so much. Like when you were watching New Hope, Empire, Jedi, the galaxy as a whole was just much smaller, much more condensed. You can have certain scenes. The lightsaber fights were very basic because that was all you knew. But now things are so crazy. The fights are so crazy. The battles are so crazy. Just copy Clone Wars. Do an animated series in between. You can do one on the Knights of Ren. You can do one on Luke and Leia. You can do all sorts of things there if they want to stay there, of course.
Do you think that would work better as like individual series, or kind of doing like almost like if you wanted to do like a one shot, like almost like a short movie, or just limited series? Because I mean, if you want to do like Knights of Ren, I mean, that's probably going to take a little bit more time. If you want to do something where it's just Leia's transition from end of Return of the Jedi to Force Awakens, I mean, you could probably cover most of that within hour 45 or whatever you want to call it. Just to cover, I mean, you don't need all those details. Han and her already know each other. They don't have to build a love story.
Right.
But she has been, and then, at some point she has her Jedi training and then goes to become a full-fledged general in the Resistance. So, I mean, you can kind of fill those gaps a little bit, but it doesn't have to be like, and then this was the day that she decided, whatever, because it's kind of already there.
That should have been what you just said should have been the trilogy. What you just said should have been part 1. She's learning, she has the Force, does all that stuff. Part 2, she has a kid, finds out that the kid's going to turn evil, tries to stop it, fails. Part 3, redemption. That should have been, to me, that should have been the trilogy right there.
It probably would have made a lot more sense.
It would have made more sense. Way more sense. Yeah, I mean, I think it's too much to do in one movie. If you want to, I mean, I guess for lack of a better phrase, if you want to redeem Ben as a character, because people liked him in the movies, I still struggle to give a reason why I like him. I think we all like the way he looks, the idea of somebody who's conflicted, but the execution was terrible. So I think if you want us to like him more, and you're going to do it in between movies, I think it'd have to be a series, because that's what Clone Wars did for Anakin. Like, Clone Wars let us understand why he turned more, and I don't think you can do it in just one movie. If they did, the writing would have to be like on point. But I mean, I would also love to see them, like with the Knights of Ren thing. I'd love to see either a short series, short movie, or whatever. Them just taking over the galaxy, like him creating or I don't know if he created it, but him helping the First Order rise to power. I mean, I think that'd be pretty interesting to see. I mean, it definitely would help explain why, he was so strong, of course. But maybe they also would explain how he knew so much about Rey before he even knew her.
Yeah, no, all good points.
No.
So, I mean, it's kind of a big gray area. Obviously, we don't know. I don't think they know on what they want to do. They know,
definitely.
they know Mandalorian season 2 is going to happen.
Yeah.
They know Rebel season 7 is going to happen.
Yeah.
They know a Kenobi series is going to happen in some capacity, and they're going to have 3 movies between 2022 and 2026. I think that's about all they've really established. I mean, obviously there could be a ton going on behind the curtain, but the big mess that was this new trilogy, it's kind of hard to say what their current thought process is, because it was very everywhere. So I also think that they kind of have to go with somebody that they trust, have to bring in Dave Filoni or somebody who actually knows how to handle it, versus going, oh, let's give J.J. Abrams this, and then we'll give Ryan Johnson part 2, and then Colin Trudeau part 3. Oh, Colin Trudeau's out. Okay, bring back J.J. Oh, shit. Ryan Johnson just totally screwed us on part 2. What are we going to do? We're going to have to figure this out. So you have to have somebody with an established story from beginning to end, and then you can be able to work with that.
Well, the funny thing that leaked today, the funny thing overall with the leaks is people always thought the leaks were BS. And then when the movies came out, people were like, oh, wow, the leaks were true about plot lines, plot holes, that kind of thing. The one that came out today is a similar thing to Batman vs. Superman, where people are now clamoring for the JJ cut of this movie to come out.
I saw that. I almost posted it on Instagram just to join the bandwagon, but I was like, do I really want to be a part of that as well as the Snyder Cut thing?
No, because I don't think it can make the movie any better. I don't think this is that movie. No. But it's interesting because it verified that Disney really intervened in his movie and really made him change things to make the movie that they wanted. So, whoever they decide to let take the torch here, they've really got to give them all power, all control of the Senate, let them just run free. And if they trust them, truly trust them to do it. Yeah.
All right. So that's really, I think, all my thoughts on it. I mean, I don't know. Did you have anything you want to wrap up? I mean, it's a big gray area. I think that they should go in universe on app, like we were talking about, maybe go expand it beyond that. Just kind of, there's an entire galaxy. We don't have to limit it to this one family who happens to be Jedi/Sith. Yes, it does give an interesting dynamic of good versus evil, but I think that there's a big world out there that we can easily explore.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with all that.
All right. So, yeah, those are pretty much all of my thoughts, Archer's thoughts here. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on this fun little Star Wars conversation?
No, I thought the movie was pretty lackluster, but I also swore I would lay off the negativity on that movie. So, since technically this video is on your channel.
Yeah, put it all on mine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I thought it was very middle of the road. I had a lot of mixed feelings about it. There were a lot of good things that I liked, a lot of things that I could clearly see they had no idea what they were doing, or they were just kind of trying to make it up as they went. And like you said in your review, you kind of just had to switch your brain off at one point because that's the only way you could get through the remaining hour and change whatever halfway point of this movie is. Um, so essentially, those are our thoughts on Star Wars, uh, where it's going to go from here. Again, thank you, Hey Archer, for coming onto my channel. Always a pleasure. Anything you want to plug other than the channel?
No. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to kind of start our own series where we split up part 1 and part 2 on both of our channels. So part 2 to this conversation, we're going to be jumping into Titans. That'll be over on the Hey Archer channel. But leave your thoughts below on what you think our title should be. That's what we need from you guys. Let us know down below what you think on, of course, Star Wars and where you want us to go. But yeah, that's all I got. And again, I always appreciate being on your channel and you having me as a guest.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor. I always love doing these little chit chats with you. Big, really exciting thing to be able to possibly have something. So make sure you guys, if you guys have a name, please let us know. We are digging deep for any possible name. So make sure you let us know in the comment section down below. Also, let us know what you think Star Wars should do going forward. We also want to know all that stuff. Make sure you subscribe to Hey Archer's channel. A lot of great content coming out there. He posts all the time. A lot of great stuff there. Make sure you subscribe to my channel as well. I'm going to be having my other Star Wars video coming up hopefully soon. I'm still in the editing process, the bulky video. But make sure you guys are subscribed to both channels. Other than that, that's all I have for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one.
Peace.